the CGI series of Thomas and Friends, an era that spans 12 seasons and 11 specials, full of many highs and many lows. The average Thomas fan will claim that CGI is inferior to the model stuff. While there is truth to that statement, I will say that at times, the Brenner era, season 17 to 21, manages to compete with the classics, and on some occasions, it even beats them. That will sound unpopular to the majority, but I'm sticking to it. I despise how the CGI stuff is automatically disdained by many simply because it isn't live action, because even the worst eras of the show have some things going for them. I firmly believe that no matter how bad something is, if there is good to be found, it ought to be pointed out. Despite CGI Thomas having quite a lot going against it, there's also a lot to love about it. The attempt to keep it consistent with what came before, high quality animation, mostly accurate recreations of the characters, using the advantages of the new medium to the fullest, flashing out faces who didn't get much to do prior, and a healthy amount of great episodes and feature-length specials. Now, the majority of the grades are exclusive to the Brenner era, but I won't deny that the other two eras have their moments hidden somewhere. And due to the CGI series' reputation, I'd like to shed some spotlight on 10 overlooked episodes this era has to offer. Let's begin.
It makes me look as if I'm going on safari. Better safari than sorry.
Kicking this list off with one of the funnier episodes of this era, buckle tracks and bumpy cars. Now, a common criticism made against the CGI era is forced humor that doesn't really fit the show, which isn't untrue.
And whirled and hurled, logs everywhere. Logs bounced off Edward.
Thank you, Sir Topham.
How lovely.
However, there are also many positive examples of the humor being absolutely hysterical, and this episode highlights that very well. The hot weather has its toll on the railway by causing bushfires and bent rails. Belle and Flynn are assigned to keep the island safe as per usual, but later when another emergency occurs, Belle ends up derailing helplessly on buckled tracks.
Maybe I should have sprayed those bumpy tracks.
Oh, look out!
Oh!
Meanwhile, Topham is having an adventure on his own. Dowager presents him with a white safari hat, which results into him being made fun of by everyone. He tries to get rid of it, but to no avail. In a meetup later on, Thomas suggests to paint the tops of the rails white to prevent further heat expansion, which solves the matter rapidly. This episode is so fun because it has a bit of everything. Hilarious humor.
Oh, the indignity.
That's my line!
Topham, don't even think about leaving without your hat.
Huh? Oh.
Real railway practice.
My mother says a lot of things, Thomas.
But maybe the tracks would keep cool and not buckle and bend if you painted them white.
And a wild cast of characters. It's so refreshing to see Belle and Flynn act smart for once, rather than goofing around when an emergency calls. The story is basically a modern amalgamation of Trust Thomas and Thomas Gets Bumped from season 3, but thanks to all the new elements, it feels like an entirely new episode. Unfortunately, this one gets overshadowed by all the other amazing bangers we got for season 20, but that absolutely doesn't make it undeserving of praise. I highly recommend giving it a watch.
At first, he was a little nervous, but he soon began to enjoy himself.
Express coming through!
Season 20 was a great year for Henry. The writers finally stopped making him a hypochondriac and his character was fixed for good. Alas, it was also the last season to feature Henry prominently, though it can't be denied that he left the series on a pretty high note. While Gordon is acting up about not being ready for the Express, Topham assigns Henry to pull it instead. While concerned at first, he quickly gets the hang of it and enjoys himself immensely. On the other side of the coin, Gordon's assigned to do Henry's goods work and is feeling the exact opposite.
You're so big and strong, I expect you'll do Henry's work in half the time.
I was never meant to do work like this. It's beneath me.
I have criticized CGI Gordon in the past for being too flanderized. I still stand by that statement, but I will say that this story was a superb usage of his curmudgeonly side. I don't mind seeing Gordon in a grumpy mood when he's assigned to do goods work, something that he's complained about endlessly in the past. Henry too was written marvelously. Rather than retconning him never having pulled the Wild Nor'Wester before, it is stated that it's been a while since he last pulled it. I'd much rather see him be apprehensive but managing quickly than self-assured but fumbling badly.
Express coming through!
But that's my line.
Bye, Gordon! Bye, Gordon!
I love it when Henry's capable side is shown. I'm so sick of his excessively scared hypochondriac side that gets pushed to the max in CGI. It's a shame that we only have 2 animated seasons that get him completely right. This is also the only time in the entire CGI era in which Henry is shown to pull the Express, as well as the only Gordon and Henry story, making everything that happens unintentionally exclusive. In conclusion, this episode is just immaculate. All the characters are written well, the concept is executed magnificently, and all interactions are very entertaining to watch. One of season 20's magnum opuses for sure.
I can't stop! Oh!
Yes, I am aware that this is the 3rd season 20 episode in a row, but what can I say? It's the best CGI season by far, so of course I'm gonna choose a bunch of stories from it. This episode spotlights Skiff the railboat, who only had the spotlight prior in Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. In that special, he was portrayed as an underdog from the most unlikely of places. Who expects a sailboat on rails to save Thomas from being blown up or Sailor John getting arrested? It's much more impacting when someone like Skiff or Toad or even Percy is the hero for once. A huge storm hits the island of Sodor, and Skiff, along with his new owner Captain Joe, do their best to keep Allsborough safe. While waiting for Joe to come back, the anchor's rope snaps and Skiff helplessly rolls away in fright. Things only worsen when Skiff crashes into a fallen tree and both Great Westerners are heading towards him.
Who's going to come and save me in this storm?
Oh no! That's Doc's whistle! And he'll be here any moment!
But that wasn't Duck's whistle. It must have been
Oliver!
Thanks to his clever wit, Skiff manages to free himself and uses his sail as a warning flag and prevents a huge accident. This episode captures perfectly just how helpless Skiff is in this situation. He isn't made out of sturdy metal and he doesn't have a horn to warn anyone. And yet, he's far more concerned about Duck and Oliver's safety than his own.
He's going to hit that tree!
The Great Westerners are well written too. They aren't condescending towards Skiff, but they make it clear to him that he should stay somewhere safe due to his fragility.
But we needed to make sure everyone was safe first. And anyway, you and Oliver are still out.
But we are considerably bigger and stronger than you, Skiff.
Yes, we're not tiny little railboats.
I sincerely adore Skiff. He's so selfless and likable, and despite having been through so much shit, even outside of the episode, he still remains optimistic and prioritizes everyone else. He absolutely is a character the audience can strive to be like. As I've already mentioned in one of my previous videos, I love how both of Skiff's episodes are the complete opposites in terms of tone. Blown Away is a dire worst case scenario, and Mermaid is a goofy sea adventure with him and Topham. It shows that he has range and that there's more to him other than being a victim of misery all the time. Trust me, go give this episode a watch. It's guaranteed to blow your expectations away.
But then there was trouble.
I think one of the CGI series' most underrated characters is Kevin the Crane. He unfortunately didn't get much to do in the Brenner era, but I will say that both of his episodes are very enjoyable. Kevin's cranky friend creates a new relationship with Cranky, and Snow Place Like Home expands his relationship with Victor. It's crazy to think that there is only one story to really showcase the dynamic between Victor and Kevin, but man, this episode truly delivers. Being from Cuba, Victor passionately resents snow as he never had to deal with it before immigrating to Sodor.
Where I come from, it's warm all year round and there's no snow.
Kevin, on the other hand, is fond of the cold winter weather. Once he gets the chance to goof around in the snow, he, in typical Kevin fashion, lands on his side, burying himself in the process.
Oh no!
Once Victor finds out that Kevin got into trouble, he immediately goes on an epic rescue mission and will spend all day searching for him if he has to. It holds so much weight that Victor drops everything to go search for his friend, considering what he had said prior.
Me? Go out in the snow? No. I'm not setting a wheel out there until every bit of snow has melted. I hate snow.
Kevin eventually manages to free his crane arm and knocks on the window to seek everyone's attention.
Maybe we should...
What's that?
With Kevin being safe again, Thomas immediately rushes to the depot to tell Victor the news.
I have to find Kevin.
Kevin's safe, Victor. He's back at the steamworks.
What? You found Kevin?
I really love how both Victor and Kevin are written because both of them feel very genuine. Let's all be real here, we've all done stupid shit we shouldn't have and had to learn the hard way, which makes Kevin very relatable. Victor too really shines here. It blows my mind that despite having received so much depth in Blue Mountain Mystery already,
Calderas hirvientes.
the writers still decided to add more layers to him. Despite all the trouble that Kevin causes, Victor still loves him. The mutual respect the two have for each other is so heartwarming, and that's what makes Snow Place Like Home my favorite Kevin and Victor episode.
I can't believe you went out there in that horrible blizzard just for me, boss.
That's what friends are for, Kevin. And you are my best friend.
I am? Wow.
Sticky fingers on my beautiful clean windows, and don't even mention my springs. You'll have to take them home this afternoon, Thomas. I'm off to see my fitter.
Season 24 has already gotten some love in my previous Hidden Gems video, so I think it's only fair to spotlight episodes from the other Big World seasons this time around. While Harwick School is being repaired after a storm, Doug volunteers to collect the children, though he's unable to do so without a coach. He travels all over the island to find one to no avail, until...
Why is there never a spare coach around when you need one?
Hello? Who's that? You said you were looking for a coach, and here I am. I'm Dexter.
I'm Duck.
Doug tries to pull Dexter, which only causes his axle to bend, and the issue still persists. Though later on, Doug remembers what Reg has said to him earlier that morning, and thereupon, he immediately fetches Judy and Jerome to finally make poor Dexter useful again.
Duck! Hello, Dexter. Meet Judy and Jerome.
Hello there, Dexter.
We've come to get you out of here.
I really love how Doug immediately feels sorry for leaving Dexter in the dust again, and how he can't take his mind off him.
Doug felt bad about leaving his new friend, but Dexter's wheels wouldn't work.
An engine trying to do everything they can to keep a fellow machine alive is reminiscent of previous stories, such as Saved from Scrap, Old Slow Coach, Hero of the Rails, The Christmas Coffee Pot, among others. Montague is notorious for avoiding the majority of the show's bad errors, which means that his character was never tarnished by bad writing, and thankfully the same is true for School of Duck, and consequently he left the show completely unscathed. Despite the narrator being replaced by Thomas, it was nice that Mark Morahan was allowed to return as the voice of Dexter. I appreciate how all the details about him are vague and left up to the viewers to draw their own conclusions. Not everything has to be disclosed, and Dexter's backstory is another positive example of that. I much prefer this episode over the Railway series book, Thomas and Victoria, because for one, the episode is much more focused on what it wants to accomplish, and two, the story just makes way more sense. Victoria was presumably next to the railway line for decades and somehow never decided to speak up, whereas here, Dexter was hidden in a disused yard and immediately spoke up once he heard that another engine was nearby. I also love the bits of humor sprinkled throughout the episode, such as Reg trying to blow a trumpet.
Oh dear, but it could be recycled as a lovely flower pot.
This scene between Duck and Gordon.
Gordon? No! Right.
And a meta joke of Duck being interrupted twice while saying his catchphrase.
There are two ways of doing things. The Great Western Way, or the wrong way.
Faster, Duck, faster!
Like I always say, Dexter, there are two ways of...
So although Dexter's wheels couldn't be repaired, he could be reused as a school classroom.
You see, Spencer? I can be speedy. I'm still the Rocket! Pew!
Season 17 is such a breath of fresh air. After almost a decade of episodes filled with nonsense and repetitiveness, it was so nice to finally receive a season made with quality writing in mind. The dialogue feels natural, the characters are allowed to be themselves again, and the concepts felt much more inspired. The Earl of Sodor, Sir Robert Norby, assigns Stephen to collect scones and cream on a weekly basis. Spencer overhears this and makes fun of poor Stephen for being slow and outdated. In an attempt to prove Spencer that he can't deliver his nourishment quickly, he asks all mainline engines he comes across to give him a push to the castle junction. This goes on for several weeks until one day, both engines meet again. Stephen coerces Spencer to give him a push, which goes well until...
The barrels of strawberry, raspberry, and even apricot jam flew into the air, then smashed to the ground.
Stephen is told off for the incident, but once Robert finds out why he did it in the first place, he explains that he can be reliable despite going slowly.
Stephen, I chose you because you are reliable, not because you are fast.
This story is utterly clever and feels very inspired. Pairing up one of the UK's first steam engines and the fastest castle steam engines in the world was a marvelous idea, and I honestly think that they crafted the most interesting story they possibly could have.
The visitors will wait a long time for their afternoon tea if Stephen is doing the job.
I'll have you know they used to call me the Rocket because I was so speedy.
Ha! Compared to a horse and cart, maybe.
Stephen is one of the CGI series' most goated characters and my personal favorite. Not only does he have an incredible amount of lore thanks to the real Stephenson's rocket, something that the show acknowledges.
I beat 4 other engines at the Rain Hill Trials.
I know. It's no wonder you're such a celebrity, Stephen.
But he also has a personality fully exclusive to him. He is an old, experienced engine, but he's still young at heart and doesn't feel his age. He is repulsive and rather vengeful when he's wrongly treated. He doesn't seek revenge and stoops to the same blow as his rival, but instead he uses his wit to manipulate others.
Oh, I'm far too busy to push an old bucket of bolts like you around.
Oh, don't worry, Spencer. I don't think you could push me fast enough anyway.
I'll show you what fast is.
Take a unique character combo, an inspired concept, and cleverly written dialogue, and what you'll receive is an incredibly entertaining episode that somehow doesn't get talked about often, which I find completely undeserved. Definitely check this one out.
Did you manage to collect that garden waste?
I'll get onto it shortly. I didn't want to keep my fans waiting.
And here we have another Ulstead Castle episode. However, this one doesn't just focus on Stephen, but on Glyn and Millie too. In fact, Runaway Engine is the only story that year to feature the Estate Railways characters. While Millie is away at the Blue Mountain Quarry, Glyn and Stephen are in charge of the castle. Throughout the day, she passes the garden waste multiple times and becomes increasingly more frustrated. She misunderstands the situation by thinking that the old-timers didn't do the task on purpose and seeks revenge by placing it in front of their sheds.
Who put this garden waste here?
It wasn't me.
Oh, it must have been Millie then. Oh, that's not fair at all.
The three subsequently have a fallout, but by the next morning, Stephen can't find Millie anywhere and shit starts to hit the fan. He concludes that he must have hurt her feelings so much that she ran away from him. In an attempt to look for her, Stephen ends up breaking down and is ironically rescued by Millie. and the two make amends. I really ought to give props to Steven's voice actor, Bob Golding. Not only do I adore his voice for the character, but his performance is also just second to none. I love the way he mimics the others' dialects.
It wasn't fair to leave it for me. And where on earth have you two been?
What I like the most about this story is how realistic it feels. Everything that happens is very grounded and something that people can relate to. We all have moments in which we've gotten angry over nothing. Those three are a great example of flawed, mature characters, and despite being petty that night, they just move on from the incident as if nothing ever happened. You get the impression that once everything is resolved, everyone will just laugh at the incident and forget it ever happened. Glynn sums it up perfectly.
It's only a little misunderstanding between friends.
He knows that the argument isn't really all that serious and will be resolved soon enough. I like how everyone has a different outlook on the situation. Glynn tries to remain calm, Millie acts irrationally, and Steven claps back by mocking her. Both of them were in the wrong and have learned valuable lessons. Millie learns that two wrongs don't make a right, and Steven learns to not postpone his work to the last minute. Despite being cross with Millie, he immediately regrets provoking her and makes it his mission to put things right again.
No, have you and Millie made up yet?
Oh, Glynn, I haven't been able to find her.
Oh dear, I haven't seen her either.
Then Millie must have run away.
He doesn't care that he can't go very fast. He doesn't care that he's transporting passengers. He doesn't care that he can't search on narrow gauge tracks. The only thing he cares about is to bring Millie home. This is a heartwarming episode which showcases beautifully that even after a fallout with people you love, you can forgive each other and learn from your mistakes together.
You do look splendid tonight, James.
Thank you, Edward. I know.
James's reputation in the CGI series tends to fluctuate depending on the era. When the show was produced by Nitrogen, it appears that the writers didn't really know what to do with him. He did receive a seasonal lead, but he didn't really do anything significant, besides being involved in one of the show's dumbest crashes.
Rescue engine to the ready!
James roared and raced down the track. He hit Gordon's buffer with a biff and a bash and a terrible smash.
God, what a stupid episode.
Oh, the indignity.
It appears that the big world writers also struggled to do much with him. He imagined himself to be a superhero once.
Never fear, Rail Rocket is here!
And then the show ended. The Brenner era, on the other hand, actually did quite a lot with James. He played substantial roles in many specials and received multiple leads per season. He was really pushed as the show's third main by this point. Though alas, his CGI flanderization that we're so familiar with really started to blossom here. The seeds were planted in James to the Rescue and began to sprout once Brenner became head writer. So imagine an episode that actually tries to change the status quo and makes James likable for once. All in Vain is a follow-up to a previous episode, Pouty James, in which the aforementioned finally learns to be silly and to accept that he can't always do the jobs he desires.
Come on, James! Put a smile on that face!
And shockingly, this episode continues that arc, considering how notorious this era is for always sticking to the same routine. It's nice to see them try to change things up. James is given the honor of taking the Mayor of Sodor to Callan Castle. Throughout the day, his paintwork gets ruined through multiple instances, and despite trying his hardest to keep his composure, you can tell it's hard for him. Once James is told that his paintwork has minor scuffs, he eventually snaps and urges Victor to have him be repainted. He didn't think it through though, and gets covered in leaves before his paint could properly dry.
I should have ignored that little scratch.
I think it's pretty obvious why I like this episode so much. James is very sympathetic for once. Throughout the day, everything is going wrong for him, and yet he isn't complaining about it. The fact that he gives the honor of taking the mayor to Edward immediately is so wholesome.
I can't pick up the mare looking like this. Edward, I don't suppose... Could you take the mare to the ball for me? Please?
Oh, I'd be happy to, James.
It shows that there's more to be done with him other than being boastful all the time. As a reward for keeping it together all day, the mayor himself comes to visit James the next day and asks him personally to take him to Vicarstown, to which James delightedly agrees. It's a shame that James ultimately didn't change, but I like that this episode implies that he could. If you want to see a James episode that portrays him as likable for a change, go give it a watch. Not to mention, the humor is frankly hilarious.
Oh, sorry about that. Leaky sugar sack.
Never mind, Cranky. It's only sticky if it gets wet.
Here's Edward!
We both would.
Actually, I'll only be needing James tonight, Sir Topham.
Oh.
But even that couldn't stop them. Percy slowed down when he saw the dark tunnel ahead.
Hello? Anybody there?
Sticking with the theme of character growth, here we have another episode to deal with that matter. Percy is having constant flashbacks and is still upset about Gator having left for Columbia. Everywhere he goes, he's reminded of him, which only worsens the matter. Cranky suggests to distract himself in order to not think about him all the time.
Keep yourself busy. That'll take your mind off anything.
He tries to take Cranky's advice to heart, but to no avail. Percy later loses control of his train, which ends up crashing into an old, disused mine. Percy is understandably afraid of entering it, but remembering what Gator has told him,
being brave is not the same as not feeling scared. Being brave is about what you do, even when you do feel scared.
He bravely charges into the abandoned mine and rescues his trucks. Percy realizes that thinking about Gator doesn't always have to make him feel upset, and that he was lucky to have ever met him in the first place.
Not still thinking about Gator, are ye? You know he only makes you sad.
No, Salty. Thinking about Gator makes me happy too. I learned a lot from that engine.
Something that ought to be applauded is how respectfully having flashbacks was portrayed. To quote Google, a flashback feels like reliving a traumatic event as if it's happening in the present moment, rather than just remembering it. As someone who has to deal with heavy flashbacks daily, I can confirm that the description is accurate.
Thinking about Gator again, are ye?
Huh? How did you know?
You've been there for half an hour with your cars coupled up.
Flashbacks are no laughing matter and can genuinely ruin someone's daily life. Percy's character growth from Tale of the Brave actually stuck, and thereupon, this episode feels very mature, which is in stark contrast to the majority of Percy's stories. Just like with James, Percy's character arc was eventually reset by the time season 20 rolled around, which is a shame, but still, this episode, viewed on its own, is simply fantastic. It even foreshadows Long Lost Friend, which is another instance of fantastic continuity that season 18 is well known for.
Aye, Percy. And who knows, but he might come back to Sodor one day.
I truly recommend you all to go and watch the episode. It's a respectful portrayal of living with mental health disorders and how it feels to lose someone you sincerely care about. You mustn't deal with your inner demons alone if there are people who listen and try to understand what you're going through. If you're in dire need of help, please don't feel afraid to reach out before it's too late.
Got you!
All right, you villains. Stand and deliver what you've taken.
What? A Toby episode from the CGI era that isn't awful? Why, yes! Heart of Gold is in fact my favorite Big World episode, hence why I'm shouting this one out for last. While Stephen is away to be repaired, Toby is assigned to help out at Ulster Castle. Due to his unusual appearance, all the passengers make rude remarks about him, and Toby begins to feel unwanted.
But they keep saying I look like a garden shed on wheels.
But that doesn't matter. It's what you do here at the castle that matters most, Toby.
Later that night, a pair of thieves break into the castle and steal King Godred's crown. They try to escape on a pump trolley, but Toby chases after them. He and his crew manage to capture the thieves soon enough. By the end of the episode, the passengers' views on Toby have changed and our favorite tram engine is recognized as a hero.
Did you enjoy being put on display?
I'll have you know that tram engine stopped some thieves from stealing King Godred's crown!
You should have seen me, Diesel, racing along the rails in hot pursuit.
It's so refreshing to see Toby in character for once. The moment he sees that someone has invaded the castle, he doesn't hesitate and immediately chases after them, rather than trembling in fear and self-consciousness. Michael White has proven many times that he fully understands these characters and knows how to write for them. Now, I can already see people disagreeing with me, claiming that Toby was out of character for taking the passengers' rude remarks personally, but I call bullshit on that. Those people are so nasty towards him out of nowhere. Of course he's gonna be upset by it. Who wouldn't be? Edward has literally cried in the past because he was bullied. And never mind that, may I remind you on what Toby's reaction was when he was judged by his appearance in his very first story.
That's a tram engine, Stephen, said the stout gentleman. Is it electric? Asked Bridget. Oosh, hissed Toby crossly. Shh, shh, said his brother. You've offended him. Electric indeed, he snorted. He was very hurt.
With this being a Michael White episode, there are a lot of references and clever lines of dialogue sprinkled throughout the episode. Toby says,
"Stop! Thieves!"
which is a reference to a story written by Chris Audrey. Millie says,
"It just goes to show you should never judge a book by its cover,"
which is a reference to the song of the same name. I love this hilarious line by Diesel here.
Silly steamies, I've never read a book in my life.
And I also adore how Millie is written. She is used to living with a pair of unusual engines, so naturally, seeing Toby is nothing out of the ordinary for her.
It's not every day you meet a hero who looks looks like a shed on wheels.
Now, the following doesn't have much to do with the episode itself, but I really wanted to use the opportunity to tell you what I would have loved to see done with Toby. Imagine this episode as a setup for a potential residence and subsequent retirement for him and Henrietta. After gaining the passengers' respect, Toby starts to love working around the castle. Everything is peaceful, he has 2 fellow geezers with whom he can joke around with, as well as a confidant who always listens to him when he's feeling down. Toby and Henrietta are both getting on in years, and after much consideration, Sir Topham Hatt allows the 2 to retire at Ulstead Castle, crowning Sir Robert Norby as the new owner. Now imagine this as Toby's final episode instead of this pile of rubbish. But now you're asking, who will be the Farquhar crew's new members? Sonny, along with his coach, Dexter. Toby can occasionally be seen helping out on the railway, but for the majority, he and Henrietta contentedly reside at Ulstead, their new home. And Toby finally receives his beloved railway series paint job. Blue side plates and a beige trim. Just imagine the timeline we could have lived in. And I think that wraps it up, folks. 10 hidden gems of CGI Thomas. I always wanted to make a full CGI video, and I'm glad to have finally done it. It shouldn't come to anyone's surprise that this will be my last hidden gems video, but that doesn't mean that someone else can't produce one instead. I want to use the opportunity to shout out a fellow community member, Chris Pham, or as you know him, Gordon Pacific 04. Chris is currently working on a hidden gems video himself, and whenever that comes out, I'll make sure to link his video in the description. I ain't exactly sure on what my next video is going to be, but perhaps I'll tackle part 4 of my random observation series. Those videos have been performing very well recently, so I think that working on that will be the logical conclusion. The script is already written, and once the audio is recorded, I'll be able to start editing. And while we're talking about views, the same unfortunately can't be said about my Railway series compilation video. How on earth did Thomas Felt Terrible manage to surpass it by a country mile? In case you haven't noticed, I have indeed made a video celebrating the 80th anniversary, so please go ahead and check it out. The link is in the description. I think that would be all. Thank you very much for watching, and see you all next time.